Welcome to the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Good evening and welcome to the latest edition of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Good to have you here on a Wednesday evening. Lots and lots to talk about on this very busy week. Cleveland is certainly in the middle of all sorts of discussions. Many of you know my take on JJ Watt. Had a great opportunity to sit in with the Shake Back sports show with Willie and the guys down there in Dallas the other day. Thank you very much for having me on that show. Getting on a little late tonight. We got a call from one of my other co-hosts, Alec, up there in the state up north, Michigan. He attends Hope College, and he's doing really well. He's a senior, and he has, when you start school, a lot of times kids don't necessarily know, what they want to study. He started out kind of looking at engineering, but he's very good with his talents are in this realm here with media and production. And I've mentioned before in other podcasts that he has created many really cool videos, especially linked to like World Cup soccer. He has a YouTube channel. His tag name is I Am Jabster. Check him out. But he has over 100,000 subscribers now. Makes a few pennies every month. So I'm jealous. I'm trying to get him to give a shout out to the Johnny Cleveland Podcast so we can get some subscriptions. So please subscribe on the YouTube for Johnny Cleveland Podcast. And you can also find us on Facebook and on YouTube and Twitter at J Cleveland Pod. And so tonight I'm wearing if you're watching the show, got my old school, old time May South up down there out west in Kansas. So representing the Mavericks, where my kids went to high school, middle school. So the latest, JJ Watt, we'll just start with there. JJ Watt is pretty much teasing us the last 2 weeks. He is dropping hints, messages on his Instagram account, I believe, photos. 2 days ago, he dropped a photo of himself with apparently his shoe in some snow. So everyone was interpreting, well, is that in Cleveland? Is that in Green Bay? Is that in Buffalo? By the way, our snow has been melting greatly. It was funny. I saw there was a map they showed on the Weather Channel, because I love the weather. And they said a week ago, 75% of the country was covered in snow. And this week, only 30%. And it's gotten up in the 50s here in the Buckeye State here in Columbus. It's that ugly, gross. I forgot how ugly it can be when the snow sticks around and then everybody drives through it with the salt and all the dirt. And so you have all this dirty snow. So it's pretty disgusting. I'm looking forward to some really good rain that can wash it all away and make things clean again. It is spring right around the corner. It looked like the forecast is going to be pretty mild. So maybe those flowers will start budding, and looking forward to that. All right, so JJ Watt, he posts his picture of his footprint in the snow. Then today or yesterday, he posted a picture of himself saying going to work, and it looked like the interior of some sort of facility where he was going to work out. Some people were starting to suggest, well, that's in Green Bay, or no, that's in Buffalo again. So he continues to play games. Today, John Clayton from the ESPN came out and said that JJ Watt was down to 3 teams, not including the Browns, but included the Tennessee Titans, Green Bay Packers, I think Buffalo Bills. But then he retracted that like an hour later because everybody in Cleveland was going, oh my God, we're not going to get JJ Watt. And then he says, let me clarify. Those teams are in the running, but they're not his top 3. So why do you mention it? Obviously clickbait. Everyone is paying attention to what JJ Watt is going to do. I would love for you, JJ, if you're listening to this podcast, we would love for you to become a Cleveland Brown. We have the most passionate, diehard fans in the world. There's no one better. You all know that, Cleveland Browns fans. You know it. The rest of the world knows it. There are a lot of good fan bases, but Cleveland has the best. And you mentioned in your one press conference at the end of the season, when you were still playing for the Texans, that you appreciate the fans and their devotion and their desire to see a winner. And JJ, you know we would have a winner here in Cleveland. We already demonstrated that last year with a great cast of talented players like Baker Mayfield, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because Baker was in the news, not on his own accord, because of some idiot who's a TV personality who likes to talk a lot about Baker and his obsession with Baker. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll see what happens with JJ. I certainly think there's a good, strong possibility. They still, in the betting houses there in Vegas and other platforms and sports media productions are still giving a little bit of a lead, a little bit more of an opportunity for the Browns to get JJ. All right, moving on to Von Miller. See, Von Miller is the other name that keeps popping up. And I didn't realize it. The Broncos have been threatening to cut him. And I didn't realize the magnitude of really why they were going to cut him. And that's because he's facing criminal charges out there in Colorado, which I believe are undisclosed. I don't know what the whole backstory is on that. I was trying to get some information earlier this afternoon on that. Apparently the police department, and I believe it's in Parker, Colorado, passed their information on to the district attorney there in Colorado, which they have not processed or brought up any charges yet. But obviously, because of this, the Broncos are looking to possibly cut Von Miller. Well, there's been a lot of interest here in Cleveland because Von Miller, like J.J. Watt, they're getting up there in age. They're 31, 32 years old. It'd be appealing to have him as the counterpart to Myles Garrett. But this criminal charge hanging over Von Miller, for whatever reason it is, and if you do know what the reason is, if you're watching our podcast or listen to it, please comment on us. Again, you can see the show on YouTube or on Facebook, and you can comment and see if I can read any of these. I don't see any coming in right now, but sometimes they come in and we don't see them until after the show. So there's Von Miller out there. Personally, I want J.J. Watt. All right. So the other player that kind of got into the headlines this week, yesterday, Marshawn Lattimore, who plays for the New Orleans Saints, and he was the first round pick of that team back in 2017. He's an Ohio State Buckeye, and he came out and made a comment like 2 days ago saying he's trying to put Cleveland back on the map. And then he said to don't give him crap about that. And so everybody started assuming, well, oh my gosh, is Lattimore going to be coming to Cleveland now? Well, he grew up here. He grew up in Cleveland. And then today he came out and he said, I was just talking to my friends in Cleveland. So all these Cleveland sports fans, all these Browns fans they're taking any little bit of comment and they're like immediately assuming that he's coming to Cleveland. We'll see. I don't know. It's fun though, right? We're only February, what is it? The 25th? Anyway, all right. So the other big headline, and it's an article, actually I wrote an article about what happened. So there's a TV personality, sports guy out in California. Maybe you've heard of him. He works for Fox. Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd has had a history of issues with Baker Mayfield. When Baker Mayfield got into some trouble with the law when he was still playing at Oklahoma, Colin was immediately said he's undraftable. He compared him to Johnny Manziel, who was a bust for Cleveland, and basically said he wouldn't amount to anything. So the Browns go on and they draft him number 1 in 2018. Colin Cowherd actually invited Baker Mayfield onto his show back then. That was during the build up to the preseason before the season had started in that his rookie year. And they had a 20-minute conversation. I went back and I watched the whole thing the other day after what I'm going to share with you, the latest dig that Colin came up with. But in that interview, it was pretty respectable. And it actually, Colin referred to himself as a radio idiot, which I just find humorous. He's an entertainer, and he knows it. And this whole conversation that's going on now with Baker and this continually belittling, this obsession that Colin has is really built into his show. I truly believe that. So yesterday, they had a segment on his show called Mayfield versus the Field, where Colin picked 16 quarterbacks pretty randomly. I'm getting out I wanted to kind of share this. I have the article on my phone. So he picked out 16 quarterbacks. Well, he left off, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, fine. He left off Aaron Rodgers. He left off Josh Allen. He left off Deshaun Watson, but he left in the group Tom Brady. So the randomness of his selection of quarterbacks was very strange. I would say that. I don't know where he picks these guys up and how he comes up with his material, but a lot of us could do a lot better. So he picks 4 guys that he went through the list and he picked every quarterback. And for all 16, for the longest time, he was like, I would take this guy. I would take this guy over Baker. I would take this guy over Baker. He finally mentioned 4 guys in the mix. The first was Ben Roethlisberger, who is in the news right now because is he coming back to Pittsburgh? Is Pittsburgh going to want him to come back? Apparently, the GM 2 days ago said, well, he's a member of our team. Ben Roethlisberger has been the face of the Steelers forever. And to just say that he's a member of the team, it's a little bit of a slight. So basically getting back to Cowherds. So he mentions that Ben is not as good as Baker. Okay, I agree, right? We saw what happened from the first snap of the playoff game. Just not, he's faltering a lot. Ben is. The other quarterbacks that Colin picked to be lesser than Baker were Tua Tagovailoa, who for a few weeks there in Miami was like the superstar, and now people are saying, well, we really don't know about Tua. And then there's Mitch Trubisky, the starter who has been starting and not starting for the Chicago Bears, and then Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff has taken the LA Rams to the Super Bowl. Now, he's faltered and he's had a problem with he had a problem with his thumb during the playoffs. But I give in my article, I kind of basically gave a little slight edge to Baker, but I will admit that when the head-to-head when Baker played against the LA Rams, was it 2 years ago where they really should have won, but the Browns and Freddie Kitchens kind of screwed up there at the end with their coaching. The Browns had an opportunity to win. I think it was a Monday night game, and they kind of screwed that up. But Jared Goff is a good quarterback. But Cowherd actually gave the lead to Baker. Now, the rest of the list, there's 12 quarterbacks that he rated as being better than Baker. Now, I'm not going to get into all the things that he particularly said about these quarterbacks and why, because there's a lot. But I'll just kind of randomly go through the list here. So Tom Brady. Okay, I get it. Greatest of all time. 7-time, Super Bowl winner. Okay, cool. Lamar Jackson. Now, I saw Lamar play against Baker. I still consider this a draw. Now, I know Lamar is one hell of an athlete, and Cowherd was talking about how he has the moves. Well, Baker Mayfield's not a slouch. And if you watch the game between the Browns and the Ravens this past season, what a hell of a game that was. I was at that game with my son. It's highly entertaining. Whoever was going to have the ball last was going to win that game, and Baltimore had the ball last. Okay, so I consider that a draw. Cowherd gives it to Lamar. That's fine. Okay, now the couple other ones. Derek Carr. He picked Derek Carr better than Mayfield. Now, if you're looking at games, yes, the Raiders won that game earlier this season, and Derek Carr was the quarterback. But in my opinion, Baker is the better quarterback. Didn't get it done that Sunday when they played him. Okay, Jimmy Garoppolo. Same sort of scenario. A year ago, the Browns got beat up by the 49ers. But Garoppolo didn't do much in that game, and hands down, I think it's Baker. But these are all quarterbacks that Coward thinks are better than Baker. Okay, the next one, Matt Ryan. Really? Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is like, okay, he had his opportunity. He should have won the Super Bowl, the one that he got the big lead against Tom Brady, but Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, came back and won it. But Matt Ryan is over the hill. But he rated him higher than Baker right now. Are you kidding me? Where the hell is this guy coming up with his crap? It just blows my mind. Now, the next one, Kyler Murray out there in Arizona. Very talent. He came in after Baker in Oklahoma. So I can't put Kyler Murray ahead of Baker. I mean, Kyler's going to have a hell of a career. I get that, but not right now. Dak Prescott, Dallas. Boy, there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? Dak Prescott, the Browns really took care of business down there in Dallas, thanks to OBJ, by the way, who had 3 touchdowns that game, and Baker. Dak Prescott, I see Baker as being the better quarterback. Now, Dak Prescott, I could see as a more mature, more of a leader. But, okay, next quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. Really? Ryan Tannehill is better than Baker Mayfield. Oh, I mean, you're talking about, look at that game. Baker and the Browns got way out to the big lead. There's no way in hell that Tennessee was going to come back. The only reason they kind of came back was because we had such a horrible defense this season. All right, Kirk Cousins. I consider this a draw, but Coward gave him the nod. Both have been coached by Kevin Stefanski. Carson Wentz. Now, I wrote a long article about this earlier in the season. Carson Wentz did go to the Super Bowl, but he's been floundering. He's seeing ghosts. He's not himself. Can he gain the confidence, man? Sure. But if you're telling me that Carson Wentz right now is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, you're nuts. All right, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's going to be a hell of a quarterback, but you cannot put him ahead of Baker Mayfield. He doesn't have the experience. Give him a few years. Give defenses time to understand Joe Burrow and figure him out. All right, last one. Matthew Stafford. What is going on with all you people out there talking about Matthew Stafford? Like he's going to bring a Super Bowl to the LA Rams. LA Rams are not going to the Super Bowl. And Matthew Stafford is way over the hill. And Coward taking Matthew Stafford over Baker Mayfield right now is just ludicrous to me. I don't know how you can do it. So there you go. I don't know what Colin, I said earlier, other than, he's a huge entertainer that he called himself a radio idiot. So I'll give him that. But this obsession with Baker Mayfield and the continually putting him down is just, it makes good writing. It makes for good stories. And so that's what I did. All right. Next on our list. By the way, I want to give a shout out to the Shake Back Sports Show. Again, they had us on down there in Dallas the other day, and we talked a little bit about the Deshaun Watson trade possibilities with the Carolina Panthers. And Willie, he put out a great poll on his Twitter page and on Facebook today, the Shake Back Sports Show. Check it out. And the question was, who is the best quarterback in the NFL to have never won a Super Bowl? And the choices he gave in his poll, and you check it out on Twitter and on Facebook, the Shake Back Sports Show, was Jim Kelly, Dan Marino, Dan Fouts, or Warren Moon. Now, I immediately said Charlie Fry. Anybody remember Charlie Fry? I said Jim Kelly. Now, Jim Kelly went to 4 Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills. Remember those years in the early 90s? And I say that he's the best quarterback that never won a Super Bowl. But I guess if you're the best and you can't win a Super Bowl and you go to 4 of them, then I'm saying to myself, well, how good are you if you can't win that big one? You go 4 straight years. No, it's not his fault. But I initially said Jim Kelly. The other quarterback to me is Dan Marino. Now, Dan Marino only went to 1 when I think they played the Washington Redskins. They think that was the year that was it John Riggins who played for the running back from the Washington Redskins. And that was a great year. Dan Marino, though, was fabulous. Go back. If you're young and you're in your 20s and you like football, go type in Dan Marino, Google it, and watch some highlights of Dan Marino. He was fantastic. Came out of Pittsburgh and just an amazing quarterback. So I voted for Jim Kelly, but second would be Dan Marino. So that's a good poll. Good job. So check that out on his Twitter or Facebook account. That is the Shakeback Sports Show. All right. Little Indians news. Kind of caught up with everybody this week with the Indians. They're back at spring training. The pitchers and catchers came back. Now the rest of the athletes have come back. The Indians are going to have a decent season, I believe, but it's going to be largely based on their starting pitching and what happens with that. You're bringing back Zach Plesac. You got Tristan McKenzie now in the fold. You got Aaron Savali. You got Shane Bieber, not Beaver, Bieber, the Cy Young Award winner. And those guys, if they can do what they can in the starting role and really, manage these games early in the season, and the Indians can get more than 3 or 4 runs a game, I think the Indians are going to be right up there. No one's giving them much of an opportunity right now. In a lot of the preseason publications, the Indians are being picked 3rd or 4th behind Chicago and the Twins. Don't forget about Kansas City. I lived in Kansas for a long time, and the Royals are a very good organization, very good team. And they will be up there. They will compete. They always play the Indians well. So we'll see how the Indians shape up. We'll do some more preseason baseball predictions as we get closer to the start of the year. But the other news is our player that we traded along with Carlos Carrasco to the Mets was Frankie Lindor. Frankie Lindor got interviewed by the New York media 2 days ago, which I happened to watch a lot of the interview, but I guess I missed the part where he basically said that he didn't work out, lift weights and whatnot as best he could last season. In other words, he didn't give it his all in his effort to do his best for the Cleveland Indians. Now, I said this many times last season when we were watching it, and it was a shortened season, but it certainly seemed to me like Frankie had a lot on his mind. And he knew, and as many sports fans, Indians, Cleveland fans knew that it was likely he was going to be let go, traded. And so obviously playing with that burden, that weight on his shoulder, I'm sure made it very difficult for him. But Frankie Lindor was with the Indians organization for a long, long time. I didn't realize that they picked him up in 2011 originally. And so, it's 10 years. You're with an organization. That's your family. So, I wish him well. I hope he has a good season with the Mets. Be anxious to see. I think he will have a good season with the Mets. I think he'll bat better. I think his batting percentage and all of that will be improved. All right. So, let's leave you with, I thought we'd leave you tonight with a couple sort of did you know stories that I thought were kind of funny. Well, not necessarily funny. So my wife, Laura works at a local business that sells clothing. And she has been sharing some funny stories that I thought, you've probably heard these sorts of things, but it just blows my mind that people in the world do this. So did you know that there are people who routinely come back to businesses that sell clothing, like my wife's business, where they have been wearing, let's say, a shirt, or let's say some slippers, or maybe a robe that they've had for 3 or 4 years. and they have the audacity, the strangeness to bring these items back and claim that the stitching is going out or that the material is being worn out and that they want their money back in full. These are items that they have been wearing routinely for 3 or 4 years. What is wrong with that picture? I'll leave you with this tonight, which has totally nothing to do with sports, but I found this very interesting. So I watched the Weather Channel. Did you know that Texas, the Lone Star State, is on their own energy grid? Was I the only one? I did not know this. Maybe you all in Texas knew, or you obviously know this, maybe, but probably most of the country did not know this. And I'm thankful that people are getting lives back in order in Texas. And I know that, because you lost power. Many of you were without energy or power for days during that cold and the ice. It was awful, terrible. It was a disaster, an emergency. But part of that, the reasoning that they lost all their power is because Texas is actually on their own energy grid. There are 3 grids in the United States. There's an eastern grid, there's a western grid, and then there's Texas. So if you're in the eastern grid, and let's say you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and your power goes out and you're in a blackout situation, you can actually draw energy, let's say from Connecticut or Virginia, and that power in Georgia can be restored. And the same thing out in the western grid. If you're out there in Portland and you lose power in Portland, Oregon, that energy from California, let's say, or Los Angeles can be drawn up to Portland. It's sort of a backstop, kind of a safety measure. Texas back in the 1920s and 30s, they always like to be a little different down in Texas. And in the 1920s and 30s, their state government wanted nothing to do with the electric companies across the country who were being regulated and trying to conform more to federal rules and regulations. Texas says, nope. We want to be on our own. We're the Lone Star State. We're going to be our own country, And so all that entire time, so for the last 100 years, they've had their own energy grid. So I just found that fascinating. They were talking about it on the Weather Channel of all places, and did not know that. I would encourage you, if you like the weather or like energy or finding out, check that out, and you might learn something there. So, all right, folks, I hope you had a great evening. Thank you for coming on and listening to our program tonight. Try to provide you a little entertainment and little funny stories along the way. Have a lot more, but I know we're kind of, it's a late evening, right? It's already 8:30 here on the Eastern time zone. Again, I hope you have a great evening. We will be hoping, got our fingers crossed, that J.J. Watt and many other free agents will be coming Cleveland's way here. If anything breaks in the next day or two, we will be back on the Johnny Cleveland podcast. But until then, everybody have a great evening, and remember to keep smiling. Take care.